More than 72,000 U.S. service members and civilians who served during World War II remain classified as missing in action or unaccounted for. 11 of those men were aboard the B-24 bomber named Heaven Can Wait that was shot down off the coast of New Guinea on March of 1944. On Memorial Day 10 years ago, the family of one of those men began the difficult task of finding the plane with the hope of recovering the remains of the aircraft and the servicemen who were killed. This spring, those families are finally getting some of the answers they've waited nearly 80 years for. The mission on March 11, 1944 was similar to the more than 30 missions this bomber had made in the Pacific theater of World War II. Heaven Can Wait and two other U.S. planes were headed toward the second of two targets near New Guinea when they encountered enemy fire. Heaven Can Wait was struck and fell to the water. The servicemen aboard were all killed.
I remember the phone call that my mother got that he had been killed. And from that point on, there was very little conversation about it. It was so painful that that generation could not handle a discussion.
Sandy Althouse lives in Georgetown now, but that spring in 1944, she was a young child in Livermore, California. That was also the hometown of her cousin, 21-year-old Second Lieutenant Thomas V. Kelly, Jr.
I remember him as just a fun guy, just a wonderful man.
On Memorial Day in 2013, Sandy's son, Scott, began the lengthy process of learning more about what happened to the B-24, Heaven Can Wait.
As I did a little research that Memorial Day, I found out that there was information available out there.
Scott Althouse is an academic researcher at the University of Illinois. In his spare time, beginning in May of 2013, he conducted extensive research on his own family member, Second Lieutenant Thomas Kelly Jr., and his fellow service members on the lost B-24 bomber, Heaven Can Wait.
We ended up learning a lot that the family had not known, and enough that we could be fairly confident we knew where that plane was likely to be in the water in a specific bay in Papua New Guinea.
Years of research paid off, but Scott wasn't finished with his work just yet. After seeing a 60 Minutes report on an organization called Project Recover, Scott hoped they would be able to help.
They specialize in using very high technology robotics and underwater scanning systems to locate aircraft that were missing in action underwater.
He shared his information, his case study that the families had worked up on this aircraft.
The people at Project Recover were ready to help.
In 2016 and 17, we had two missions going to Papua New Guinea. And with that, the second mission, we were targeting that area where the B-24 Heaven Can Wait had gone down. And in fact, did find it and found it pretty darn close to where Scott Althouse and the other family members had proposed that it might be. When it hit the water, it broke up, so there's pieces and parts scattered on the ocean floor. And from that determination, we positively identified it as a B-24.
It was off the coast of New Guinea, more than 200 feet underwater, too deep for traditional divers, but just knowing it was there and finally found was huge news for the families of the servicemen who were lost.
I can tell you that one member of the surviving crew relative's family was the son of one of the crew members, an infant son at the time of his death, and so he never got to know his dad. And he said that finding the Heaven Can Wait aircraft site by Project Recover was the most significant event in his life.
The U.S. military, specifically the Defense POW MIA Accounting Agency, got involved.
In February of this year, we rolled out with the Navy Experimental Dive Unit to actually excavate the site.
That's Greg Stratton with the DPAA on the left and Lieutenant Commander Daniel Kinney with the Navy Experimental Dive Unit on the right.
My team consists of 23 personnel, and that's military divers, an electrician, and some civilians that we have working for us.
It was a complicated mission at the site of the crash that lasted 37 days.
Yeah, the most important part of this whole mission was the feedback we got from the divers on the bottom. We had instantaneous feedback through video, and we had daily, and after each of the dives, we had a feedback session with each of the divers about what they saw.
Mr. Stratton and his team would constantly let us know, what we were finding, so it kept the divers energized and feeling great about the mission that we were performing.
We recovered a tremendous amount of biological and non-biological evidence that gave us a great idea of what was there, what we found, and gave us a tremendous amount of evidence to bring home to analyze.
There's a lot of emotion attached to this kind of work, especially for something that we found to be incredibly rewarding and such a great opportunity. So when we actually got on the bottom and were able to see the aircraft wreckage and to kind of understand the story behind everything, it's a humbling experience, and one that everyone on my team is forever going to be grateful that we were a part of.
So us for success, for this mission in particular, yes, it was highly successful. And like Lieutenant Commander Kitty said, the family involvement that's still there in some of these cases that are upwards of 80, 85 years old it is amazing, and that we can help bring closure to some of these families.
The final analysis of what was recovered will not be known for a few months, but the families of those lost servicemen have been given some closure. The remains that were found have finally begun their journey home.
It is just mind-blowing to think where we started and where things are right now. When we first started, we just wanted some answers about what happened on that final mission. Where might that plane be located? And for the series of events that led us to be introduced to Project Recover, for Project Recover to find the plane, and for now the military to go out and recover remains, it is hard to describe the range of emotions and the gratitude that families, not just my own family, but the families that were connected to of the 11 missing in action with this aircraft.
This journey began on Memorial Day 10 years ago. It's been a long but important journey. Next Monday, Memorial Day, is an important day for these families and all families who've lost loved ones serving our country.
The last letter, he said, this was February of 1944, just a couple of weeks before he was killed. And he said, I don't want you to feel sorry for me. I'm just telling you to appreciate what you have, even if you don't think it is much. It is so much. The men fighting here for everyone are doing it for your freedom.
Wow.
And that's his heart speaking.